time to talk about the Secret of Onomichi. I will, in fact, be spoiling all of Yakuza 6. All of it. I'm not joking. Let's get started. The Secret of Onomichi is the secret of the Yomei Alliance. That's a big, rich Yakuza group that owns Hiroshima. They exist specifically to protect the Secret of Onomichi. From a narrative perspective, this is brilliant. Giving your big bad guys a weakness that they have to desperately struggle to defend allows you to make them jump through all sorts of narrative hoops very fluidly. Every twist and turn you want to put in, you can put it in because your bad guys have a weakness, a desperate weakness. And it powers the entire game. For example, the Chinese mafia is a big part of this game. Here you can see them moving into Japan 2 years ago. But the actual situation is very complicated. See, the Chinese mafia boss pretended to know the secret of Onomichi, and by doing so, he could blackmail the Yomei Alliance into taking a lot of illegitimate Chinese children on board as Japanese children, naturalizing them. But because he's pretending, he desperately wanted to avoid ever actually meeting anyone from the Yomei Alliance in person, let alone going to Japan. Because if they ever noticed that he didn't know it, then, boy, not only would he lose his leverage over the Yomei Alliance, but they would probably kill thousands of innocent Chinese children. Yeah. Unfortunately, he was lured into coming into Tokyo. His son and the Yomei Alliance son got together and set up this thing where they burned down a big chunk of Tokyo and gave it to the Chinese mafia. And he couldn't back down, because it turns out that what was going on here is the son of the Yomei Alliance captain, who is the end boss, by the way, was planning to usurp his father, and he usurped his father by realizing that the Chinese mafia didn't know the secret, and by threatening to reveal that fact to his father. And in doing so, he got the Chinese mafia under his thumb. And that was the basis of what the Chinese mafia was doing in this game, and things got out of hand, and people are dead. His child is dead. His son is dead. And everything is on fire, and but it works well. Every spin, they reveal just little nuggets here and there. Oh, the Chinese mafia knows the secret of Onomichi, and that's why they could do these things. Oh, crap, he's just been bluffing the whole time, and that's why he had to do his things. Every twist makes sense. That's not the only thing in this game that's based on the Secret of Onomichi. A lot of the narrative is. But all of the stuff that's based on the Secret of Onomichi is pretty strong from a narrative perspective. It flows well, and the twists all make sense. Now, the problem is that while they might make sense, they don't hit very well all the time. The Secret of Onomichi is not something Kazuma Kiryu gives a shit about, and we the players don't give a shit about it either. At least I didn't. Kazuma Kiryu wanted to make sure his daughter was okay. By now, she's recovering. He wanted to make sure his grandchild was okay. By now, he's with his mother. He wanted to find the father and make sure that he wasn't a dick. By now, he's teamed up with a recovering child. So, all of his plot is resolved. He's done. But don't you want to know the secret of Onomichi? The game blares. The secret of Onomichi, like Shatner. Does the player know the secret of Onomichi? Does Kazuma know the secret of Onomichi? He must never know the secret of Onomichi. It would upset the universe if he knew the secret of Onomichi. It just goes on and on and on, and they build it up to an extent where nothing could possibly be good enough to be the secret of Onomichi. The universe of Yakuza cannot contain something big enough to be the secret of Onomichi. It's just not feasible. It's not that kind of universe. The only things I could think of that would be big enough were like maybe if Japan was planning a nuclear strike on America and it was going to launch like next month sometime, that might be big enough. But that's not the kind of game this is. So they're building the secret up and up and up and up and up. And You don't care. Kazuma doesn't care. Nobody cares. And so it rings really hollow. At least it did to me. And they actually show you the Secret of Onomichi. This must have taken some serious balls. They could have gotten away without showing it. They could have gotten away with the whole game being resolved by keeping it a secret. In which case it would have been like, oh, what's in the box sort of situation. But they show it. So let's take a look at that cutscene. I need to be clear, from a cinematic perspective, this cutscene is quite good. I love the audio, the color grading, the camera shots. If this was like a kaiju film, like a Godzilla movie, this would be a really spectacular scene. This isn't a Godzilla movie. I don't think this scene fits into the Yakuza universe very well. But most importantly, let's see what this kaiju movie style film scene reveals. By the way, our next episode is going to be on Hirose. I really like Hirose. Hirose da. Oyabe. 兄貴、おやさん。なんじゃ。俺の負けだな。なんなんじゃ。奥に。この奥にあった。でかいレバー動かしたんじゃ。そしたら急にサイレンが。高頭、踊れがこれを。Yeah, that's the Secret of Onomichi. So, let's talk about it. First things first, obviously the Yamato isn't going to have the kind of impact on an American audience that it would have on a Japanese audience. I can't speak for the Japanese, but I can talk a little bit about the good and bad of this secret. The bad is that it doesn't come anywhere near living up to the giant hole that the Yakuza universe built around the Secret of Onomichi. To an American audience, it's basically just a large ship. This is made worse when you realize that it's not a ship that's actually supposed to do anything. It's not crewed, it's not like a nuclear vessel, it's not going to establish dominance for Japan. It's just a big expensive boat. And the secret of Onomichi is simply that it took a crap ton of money to build, and they stole almost all of that money from the government. So that's what they're protecting. They're protecting the amount of money they stole rather than the actual secret itself. For me, this made the reveal quite weak, and it certainly didn't feel big enough, but nothing could have, because if it had felt big enough, it would have been ludicrous. It would have been very silly. So, to me, the problem here isn't the secret. It's the build-up. If we had been lured into this Secret of Onomichi stuff by understanding that it was important to the Yomei, but, what's important to a Yakuza group, not necessarily going to be important to the universe. So, if they'd made it clear that this secret was big for the Yomei, then that would have been an approach that would have allowed us to scale back our expectations a little bit. But they were there saying things like, oh yeah, it's really important that you, random Yakuza number 46 with big fists, know the secret of Onomichi. And it's like, it's not. It never was. This is completely uninteresting to our main character and therefore to us. Now let's talk about the good. The good is that this secret is really thematically on point. You see, the secret of the secret is that it shouldn't exist. The director of the Yomei was tasked with destroying it and hiding the evidence, but he couldn't bring himself to do so. He couldn't bring himself to destroy this symbol of Japanese authority, a symbol of an alternate time when the future held promise. He couldn't destroy his dreams, and that is a very powerful statement in this game about how fathers and sons fail to connect. This is something that's doubled down on by the fact that his son doesn't give the slightest shit about this boat. He uses it as a tool against his father to take over, and that is the extent of his care about this boat. And in fact, the Secret of Onomichi basically vanishes after these next 4 cutscenes, and after that, it's completely forgotten because the Yomei Alliance no longer cares, and therefore you no longer care. The idea that this giant secret that controls a huge portion of the Japanese mafia, the Yakuza, is something that is just pride. It's just an echo of their past that they refuse to let go of. They're literally letting themselves be controlled by their past and their refusal to let go of it and move into the future. And that is a very powerful statement. And I think that that is a really good part of this reveal. Not necessarily that it's the Yamato, but that it is something that exists only because of the failings of one old man. And the entirety of the Japanese Yakuza group, all of Tokyo and the Chinese mafia and the Korean mafia, all of these things have gotten twisted and tangled because one old man couldn't let go. That's good. I like that. This is definitely on purpose. Later on, in one of these cutscenes that you'll see when we do the Hirose video, we see Hirose murdering people, and one of those people is carrying around a model kit of the Yamato, and it gets blood all over it. That's exactly what this is. It's obvious that this is exactly the same thing. This is a model kit of the Yamato, $1 trillion model kit that they're desperate to keep secret, and it's got blood all over it. I think that thematically it works well. The problem with it for me is simply that it doesn't enter the plot in a way that works with how the plot built it up. The narrative tries so hard to make it seem like it's going to be incredibly important to us, and it's just not. Maybe to a Japanese audience that would be a lot more effective. I mean, if you're a big fan of the idea of Yakuza being honorable men and all that stuff, maybe you're the sort of person who would also be a big fan of the Yamato and be big into military history and all that jazz. I don't know. I can't tell you. I can say that for me, the ship itself, the cultural connotations are weak. I don't feel them because I'm American. It's not a big deal. to me, just because not only am I American, but I'm way too young to remember World War II. So it's something that I only pick up by osmosis. So the core cultural impact is missing, and maybe that's why it rings so hollow. But I have a feeling that it was probably pretty hollow to begin with. Would it have been better if it was like, a ship that was a nuclear vessel that they were planning to use against America in the near future? I don't think so. I think that would have weakened it rather significantly, because the whole point is that it's a faded dream of an old man who's lost his way, lost his hope in the future. I think that's important. And I think that the way to pitch this would have been to massage the lead up a little bit. And I said that about the jokes too. If this game hadn't been quite so rushed, I think it could have hit a lot harder. But let me know what you think. If you played this game, did the Yamato feel like a very silly beat to you? Let me know. Have a good day.